Hey there, I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Rick Pino. He is a friend, he is a client, and he is a super smart guy that I know you're going to love hearing from. He has this method called the Be, Do, Have, Give formula. And whether you're a business owner or not, this application applies to relationships, to parenting, to health, to business, to all areas of your life. And so, no matter who you are listening to this, I can't wait for you to hear what Rick has to share today. I left this episode with a better, more hopeful outlook on business and other things in life. And I know you're going to leave just completely blown away and ready to crush it in all areas of your life. So let's dive in so you can meet Rick and gain a lot of wisdom from him. Hey, Rick, welcome to the show.
What's up, Adrian? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here for our audience. Rick and I work together. I manage the ads for his company. We've gotten to hang out outside of work a few times. So I'm really excited for this interview.
And Adrian, I'm excited because you running the ads for my company, you've helped me make $1 bajillion because you're so awesome. So thank you. I appreciate you very much.
Very fun to work with. Rick, you and your team are always coming up with new ideas and like to test things. And so that just makes it super fun. So we love working with you.
It's a fun partnership. I love it too.
Yeah. So let's start back at the beginning of your story as an entrepreneur or business owner. Like take us back to how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me on the show. I'm so glad to be here, and I love watching you step into this. This is so cool. I started my entrepreneurial journey actually when I was 15 years old. Me and my best friend at the time, we opened up our first business. It was hilarious. The name of our business was Pacific Glory International, and we laugh now because I asked him, I was like, why did we name it that? That's the weirdest name ever. And he said, dude, 15-year-old Rick, you just said that sounded like the biggest company in the world. So like Pacific Glory Internet. So we started whenever we were kids, and I've always been entrepreneurial minded. We got real serious about it. My wife and I, probably like 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, got really serious about business. And we just started building businesses. We started investing into ourselves. We started buying courses, taking mentorships, and just learning the ins and outs of business. And I mean, I've done everything from agency work to e-com to real estate to, intellectual property to consulting, on and on and on. And man, I'm grateful because pretty much everything that we've done has been successful in the place of business. But when I say successful, it's because we've gone through a lot of hardships to finally get to the success. And I'm sure we'll probably jump into some of that here in a little bit.
Yeah. So how long did it take you, you've dabbled in a lot of different things in business. How long did it take you to kind of settle in on your main business?
Yeah. So like the current one that we're doing right now with like helping people grow their businesses with digital products.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like I just mentioned, having experience in all these different areas, I kept coming back to like after we would establish like whatever, our wholesaling company in real estate, I'd be like, man, I want to show people how to do this now. And then I would always create some kind of course or mentorship around it. And then the course or mentorship would do way better than the actual wholesaling, right? Or, my e-commerce business, like, whoa, we're, however many years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, our e-commerce business is doing 5 or 50,000 a month. This is awesome. And then I'd always be like, I should show people how to do this. And so every business that I did that I started getting success in, it always came down to, I should create a digital product around this to show people how to get success. And it finally came to the point where I was like, I should just probably make digital products my business because I've had so much success. Like every business was always better with a digital product. So that's kind of what brought me to where we are now with Get Wisdom.
Yeah, I think what's cool is you took the skill set that you had in whatever it was that you were doing, like you said, real estate or something else. And then we're like, how do I become a teacher of this, right? Like, how do I take a skill that I already have, that I've already mastered, that I have some level of knowledge about, more knowledge about it than the people that I would be selling to, and creating a course? And you just did that over and over and over again.
Oh, 100%. And the thing with digital products too, like one of the reasons why I love helping people build their digital products and get them off the ground and start making money with them is because I learned along my process, you know, even though I didn't make $1 million every single business that I started, even just taking a little bit of action, you can get one or two steps ahead, you know, beyond the normal person who like, I wish I could do that.
Hmm.
And you don't have to be an expert to do it. You just have to be one or two steps ahead. It's like that story of that professor who, like, I forget who it was, but they taught a whole entire year as a college professor. And then they got caught by the police and they're like, how in the world did you do this? And he said, I just stayed one chapter ahead. Like
They one
I
chapter ahead
literally
of the
just stayed
class.
I was one chapter ahead, 1 week ahead every week of the class, and it worked. And that's kind of how you can do the digital product stuff too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I know you've had a lot of success, but like you said, it didn't come with some challenges. So let's jump into that. Like, I know you faced a really big challenge in your business where you thought you might lose everything. Let's go to that part of your life.
yeah, 100%. I think I'm going to share that story in a second, but I want to preface with a thought. Like, a lot of people think that doing the work is the hard part,
Hmm.
but I want to submit to the audience here. I actually believe becoming the person is the real hard part, right?
Mm.
And I'll get into that here in a second. So, with that being said, yeah, a handful of years ago, my team and I at the time, we were doing okay. My business was up to like 50 to 70,000 per month, and honestly, we were stuck there for a couple of years. And a lot of people from the outside looking in going like, what? I wish my business could make 70,000 a month. Like,
Hmm.
until you own a business and run a business and have staff and pay insurance and have the office and the all the overhead that comes with it, like, it's really not that much. 50K a
Yeah.
month is not that much to run a business. And so honestly, at the time we were really struggling. We were doing okay, but like, it was like some months we would get a little over, some months we get a little under, and somehow it was just averaging to like kind of breaking even
Yep.
kind of type thing.
Yep.
And at the time, we weren't working with Adrian. So I ran an ad campaign that completely bombed. It was like absolutely terrible. And unfortunately, we were newer at ads at the time and we said it wrong and we said it for way too much. We didn't know how ads worked. And it was terrible. Like, in a matter of just a few days, we lost
Mm.
$40,000 on ad spend in just a few days.
Ouch.
And I will tell you this right now, like, I don't care how much money you got in the bank. Nobody wants to lose 40K in a couple of days. Just like, it would have had better use to like just pour the cash on the floor and burn it, because at least we would have got some warmth from it,
Oh
like,
my
that would
gosh.
have been a better use.
Oh.
And it was just gone in a minute. And it was so detrimental because, like, for us, that's like basically a month's worth of income gone
Mhm.
in a minute.
Yeah.
And we I called an all hands meeting. I said, listen, if we don't figure something out, like, this is all over with. Everyone's losing their jobs, because I had like 12 people on staff or something at the time.
Wow.
Everyone has to lose their job. Like, we need to figure something out. So that was tremendously difficult. That was just, 5, 6 years ago. But then there's light at the end of the tunnel. We gathered everybody together like the day after we saw, oh my gosh, we just lost 40K. And we innovated, man. And we started coming up with ideas that we would have thought of if we didn't go through this like crazy
Mhm.
pressure. And it was through the hardship that forced us into, it's kind of like pressure. Like, are you going to become a diamond or are you going to crush?
Mm.
And I think a lot of times it's up to our choosing of how to see it, how we respond, if we're going to become a diamond or if we're just going to like buckle under the pressure.
Yeah.
And I determine, Adrian, I'm going to become a diamond. This is going to work or it's going to work. Which one? And long story short, we innovated and we came up with a new product that, like, we launched it that next week. It exploded. And I went from doing like 40 to 50K a month, 70 on the higher ends, to all of a sudden with this new product that came from the innovation that the pressure brought, to doing consistent 3 to 400K a months immediately, like in a moment. But we never would have got there if I wouldn't have gone through like that hard situation. And yeah, that was a handful of years ago. So it was rough. It was hard.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's the short version of how you went from the hard thing to the amazing. And I know there's a lot that happened in between. I would love to, if you can remember, to take you back to that moment when you were going to have to tell this to your team. Like,
I actually blocked it out of my memory. Like I just went to out of
yeah,
body experience. Like I never want to think. I'm just kidding.
yeah. Because, like, as a leader, right? Like, number one, it's really hard to go to your team and be like, we're failing. Like, we're struggling. This is about to go under. You're all about to lose your jobs. Like as a leader, number one, what went through your head? And like, did you make a conscious decision of like, this is how I'm going to show up and for my team? Or was it just like, I mean, I just showed
You
up and was
know,
as honest as I could be, like taking me back there as a
100%.
leader in how you, because you could have just scared everybody away and they could have just been like, screw it and quit. Right. But
Sure.
clearly that's not what happened. So I'm curious as the leader, like kind of how that meeting went and what was going on in your mind when you were preparing for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those who don't know, like I'm a man of faith, right? And so I believe in God. And when it happened, I went to prayer and I was like, God, I need help. Like I need wisdom because I don't know how to do this. And it was in prayer that I heard this phrase, like kind of in my heart, Adrian, that I actually share with my students all the time now. And I got this phrase in prayer, and the phrase was very simple. And I believe it was a word from God. And I just heard this: your potential is bigger than any problem.
Mm,
And like I came away from prayer with this
wow.
phrase in my heart, like, oh my
That's
gosh,
powerful.
like even though it feels like I'm losing right now,
Mhm.
if I allow those feelings to become bigger than me, then I'm giving those feelings permission to be bigger than my God-given potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with that phrase, I kind of came out of that conversation with God and I went to my team. I believe that humility is always like the best route, right?
Mhm.
Again, being a man of faith, pride comes before a fall, but humility comes before honor.
Mhm.
And so I just sat my team down. I said, guys, like we messed up royally. I messed up, and if we don't fix this, we're goners.
Yeah.
And so I approached it just from the place of vulnerability. I think as leaders, like especially business owners, leaders, if we can walk not just and like show everybody the wins, but if we can be vulnerable enough to like share the hard times with those people around us, it almost like endears them to you stronger because they're like,
Mm.
man, Adrian's a real person, Rick's a real person. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they're not just winning all the time, they lose too. How do they navigate the L's, you know,
Mhm.
not just flaunt the wins.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I went to them and just vulnerably said, hey, here's where it's at, here's what happened, this is my fault, how are we going to fix this? And that's how I approached it. But I'm so glad that it happened because I don't know if I would have heard that phrase in that way,
Mhm.
that no problem is bigger than your God given potential.
Yeah. Well, the truth is for a lot of people, when things are going great, they tend to kind of forget about God a little bit, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm winning.
100%.
Everything's great. I don't need to pray about anything." Like, they can become a little bit disconnected and so God allows hardships into our life in the ultimately in the end to draw us closer to him. Um and so I think that like you said, this hard thing. It was like, oh, we were doing okay and we were kind of coasting, but there didn't sound like there was any urgency to necessarily come up with new and better things to help
Oh man,
grow.
if I would have never gone through that hard situation, I probably still would have been stuck, you know, at 50K a month, like just like, well, it's kind of okay and we're all just kind of doing okay. But um, you know, I think that I love what you just said, like God allows certain hardships to come into our lives for a purpose. And it's my belief that the purpose prepares us so that we can actually become the kind of person who can actually like manage the success,
Yeah.
you know, like without the journey, without the hardships, without the purpose, you know, or sorry, without the process,
Hmm.
we have such a difficult time. Like I would rather do the work of like I got to put roots down, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying, like I have to become more. And one thing that we have to understand as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as humans is the hard times are going to happen, but it really comes down to like if you can become the person that it takes, then you can do the work that is needed to be done. And if you can do the work, then you can have the stuff.
Hmm.
And then if you have the stuff, then you can actually make the impact that you desire to make. So
Yeah.
that's like a framework that I try to live in. I teach my students about. It's be, do, have, give. You have to become
Mm.
more so that you can do more, so that you can have more, so that you can give more. And it's that
Yeah.
process that really allows us to become more. And that's what I said earlier. Like the hard work isn't in doing the stuff. The hard work is in becoming the person.
Yeah. Well, it's why like lottery winners lose everything they have because they didn't have to become someone who knew
Exactly.
how to manage that amount of
Exactly.
money. They just they went to having, right? They skipped the two steps before that. And so it all falls apart. So how do you
Yeah, I
become the person?
great question. I was just about to say, like, exactly to your point of like, this is why like lottery winners go broke. You know, I just saw like the Powerball winner last year. He won like I think 1.2 billion. He's already
Mm.
broke, like in a
Oh,
year.
wow.
Like, what in the world?
And you and I are like, give
Like,
me that money. I'll multiply that 10
like
times.
what is happening, right? But again, to your
Wow.
point, Adrian, like he didn't have to become the person that it took. He just had.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get this formula backwards. Like instead of be, do, have, give, they're like, man, I wish I could give more. It must be nice to be rich. You know,
Hmm.
they start on the desire or the
Hmm.
want to have the thing,
Yeah.
but they haven't done the work that it takes to actually deserve the thing. And the reason why they haven't done the work is because they haven't become the person. So to your question, like how do you become the person? Um, you know, Solomon in the Bible says that he was the wisest man. He spoke of
Hmm.
trees, he spoke of birds, and you know, to tipping my hat to Solomon's wisdom, this whole idea of a tree. Okay, so I teach this be, do, have, give method really out of Solomon's model of he spoke of trees. Like, think about this: a tree doesn't just grow one way, right? If
Hmm.
you ask somebody like, which direction does a tree grow? People say, well, it grows up. Yes, it grows up, but it also grows down. And the part of the root structure that grows down, that's called the gravitrophic work that a tree does. And it's interesting because no one sees the roots going down. Like it's dark, it's
Hmm.
cold, it's hard. There's nothing that anyone could be like, great job. You put down 47 roots yesterday. Like no one's clapping for the roots.
Hmm.
However, if the roots don't go down deep, kind of like the lotto scenario, if the tree were to just poof a bunch of apples and it had no roots, it had no gravitrophic work, then the tree would not make it. Why? Because I don't believe that it's God's will for us to just have without first doing and without first being. So for me, Adrian, the being is the roots, right? It's us
Hmm.
doing the internal work on ourselves, our mindset, investing into ourselves, becoming the person, changing our thoughts, changing our speech. Those are the roots, right?
Hmm.
The doing is the trunk, right? The doing is it's the reps, it's the work, it's the growth. Like, okay, now that I'm becoming the person, I need to start practicing this and putting in reps. That's the trunk. And then eventually that leads to the shoots and the fruit, which is the have.
Hmm.
And the more fruit you have, the more you can give, right? Which leads us to the giving. So that's why be, do, have, give. That's the philosophy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a great visual and such a metaphor for it to think about it in that way because it is I like you said a lot of people are like, "Oh, it must be nice to be rich." Like or, "Oh, of course they can do that because they have money." But they never saw the behind the scenes stuff. And I think that too many people don't talk about that. Like we do just kind of it looks like people just arrive, right? And they're like, "Oh, my business is crushing it or this is crushing it." And a lot of people don't talk about like the nitty-gritty work behind the scenes. And so in that moment when you guys, it was like, hey, this is do or die, right? Like we either innovate or we die. And you were like the team got to work and so I'm curious about that process if you want to talk about that a little bit more because especially as a leader and for people listening right now that are business owners, you have to put aside, like you said, your pride and your ego as a leader if you want to have a team that feels free enough to innovate, right? And free enough to come up with new ideas and you be willing to hear new ideas. I think a lot of
Yep.
business owners just think like, well, I have to be the one that comes up with the idea and it has to be me. And so how do you kind of create that environment or what does that look like that allows a team to become creative and innovate so that you can grow?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because I feel like most leaders who stay stuck under six figures a month, it's simply because they're the bottleneck,
Hmm.
right? And it's like if you have to have your hands on everything, like you don't make millions by yourself. No one who became a millionaire, besides lotto winners, which we just established why that's so dangerous, it can be
Hmm.
dangerous. Any business owner that became a millionaire through their business, they did it with a team. And if you're the bottleneck of your business, like you're stuck. Like the business can only grow beyond, it can't grow beyond who you are. And to be able to multiply at that level, it takes team. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Grant Cardone, billionaire, right? Like he says this all the time. And years ago when I started hearing him say this, I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But now on the other side, I'm like, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. Um, what allowed us to innovate? It was this do or die. It has to work or it has to work. So which
Hmm.
one is it going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like all or nothing. I always heard Grant a handful of years ago, he would always say things like, you got to stay broke. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And Grant, this guy, his business is doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year as a billionaire. And he always talks about like every quarter I go broke. I take the cash that we have on hand, any surplus, I dump it into investments, into assets, and I only have enough cash flow just to operate my business for a couple
Mm.
of months before we go broke. So he willingly backs himself into a corner every quarter. And finally, I heard him explain, like on a podcast, the reason why he does this is because it keeps him on edge.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like the Rocky 3 movie. Like you get so much success, you get so good at something, you lose your edge, you lose the eye of the tiger, like Rocky had. And it's like now anybody can beat you because they're more hungry, they're more innovative, like they're more desperate. Rocky in that movie was living in his mansion. He had like a robot serving him, like, people fanning him off, feeding him grapes. Like you're not innovative at that point. You're not desperate. You're not hungry. And again, Book of Proverbs says that the hungry will kill and eat, right? And so I think it's really important to, again, not allow the feelings of, I feel like I'm losing, but to actually interpret those feelings of, man, this is hard, this is not working, into the feelings instead of receiving them as like, this isn't working, it's hard, and I should give up, interpreting them as this is my sign I'm about to level up, because if I don't give up, if I become more, then in out of this season I'm going to be able to do more, and if I can do more, then I can have more.
Yeah.
And so now it's almost like a secret sauce formula that me and my team use is
Mm.
I like to be backed into the corner.
Hmm.
Like right now in one of my businesses, I do feel like my back is up against the wall in some ways. And I love it because we're innovating like crazy. We're having ideas that we wouldn't have ever had. There's a
Yeah.
fantastic book by Benjamin Hardy and Dan, I
Sullivan.
forget the other guy's name. Yes, 10x is easier than
Yes,
2x.
I know. I made
And the
my team
concept,
read it. It's so
it's
good.
fantastic, man. Like the
Yeah.
concept of the book is like if all you're trying to do is double, then the lens that you try to double through is the lens that you already have. So to double, all you have to do is work harder, but to
Hmm.
10x, you have got to like become a new person and put
Yeah.
on new glasses to see the world through and have new thoughts, because what works for 2x does not work for 10x.
Yep.
And I love this concept because God does not call us to add, he calls us to multiply. In
Multiply.
Genesis, he said, be fruitful and add. No, he said, be fruitful and
Multiply.
multiply. So God's math is different than our math. And a lot of times it comes through being under that pressure and having our back against the wall.
Yeah, we have our team is experiencing this right now. We have a program that's very successful, and it's about 40% of the company revenue.
Hmm.
And I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't feel called to it anymore. I feel called to something else that I'm working on. I'm growing this. We're making a shift in the business and doing more done for you. And I made a decision that at the end of August, we were shutting the program down. And we, it's like, okay, let's come up with all the ideas and ways that we could replace this revenue. And then we did that in like March. And I was like, okay, well, we have till like June to see if we've replaced the revenue. And if we haven't, then we're not shutting the program down. And then like a couple days later, I got on a call with them and I was like, we're shutting this down on August 31st, no matter
No
what.
matter
Because
what.
if
Yep.
I say, oh, we'll check in June, I go, that gives us an out. And we will not try as
Yeah, you have
hard
a plan
to,
B now. I have a
yeah,
plan B and a plan C. Like,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm
exactly.
like, we will not try as hard to replace this if we know that, oh, come June 1st, if it doesn't work out, it's fine. We'll just keep doing the program. And so I told him, I'm like, it's over. Like, this is done August 31st, no matter what. So we
Thousand
have to
percent.
figure this out. This is not optional.
Thousand
We
percent.
have to figure it out. And I can tell you that we're definitely approaching things differently than if I was saying, like, well, we have till June. Because look, it's already May right now. And we still haven't 100% figured it out. And so I can tell you right now, in June, I'd be like, well, we'll just keep it going until we figure it out. And there wouldn't be an urgency and there wouldn't be as much innovation and there definitely wouldn't be
Why would
as
you
much
be
growth.
hungry? Like, if you're a lion who, is sitting there with a full belly, like you're not going to go hunt. You're
No.
not going to go try to, kill something and eat. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah, I love the idea of um this is let me say it like this. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is unsuccessful people, they really do allow the overwhelm to be bigger than them.
Yeah.
But as a
Yeah.
successful entrepreneur, you use the overwhelm. See, when you're unsuccessful, the overwhelm is using you and you feel
Mm,
it like, oh man, this is so hard. But
yep.
as a successful entrepreneur, you use the overwhelm as fuel to go, man, something better change. And it's so funny because like I just mentioned, like the situation I'm in right now in one of my businesses where I feel like my back is against the wall, I feel overwhelmed in it. However, I have a new relationship with overwhelm because when I was starting to get serious in my business 6 or 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was, overwhelm would be like, oh man, this is so difficult. What am I going to do? Now, my relationship with overwhelm is when overwhelm comes knocking at the door, I'm like, hey, you're here again? What? Welcome. It's time to level up already. I feel
Yeah.
like I just leveled up with you last month. And so now your relationship and your connection with that feeling, for me anyways, has changed. So now like it's literally this simple for me. If I'm feeling overwhelmed and my back is against the wall, it means to me, it's a sign to me that I have become another version of the person that God has called me to become. And here is a new problem that, again, unsuccessful people see as problems. Successful people, successful entrepreneurs, we see every problem as a new opportunity. Okay,
Yeah.
this feeling of overwhelm, I used to see it as a problem, but now I see it as an opportunity. I
Hmm.
believe that this has come at this time because I'm now the person that it takes to be able to do. And Adrian, just like you've probably seen in your own business, like for me, the number one way to overcome the feeling of overwhelm is just to do more.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've become the person, I'm just going to do more. What do I know works? I'm going to execute more. What systems do I have in place that are working? Let's do more of those.
Hmm.
Just yesterday, there was a situation that came up in one of my businesses, and the natural feeling of overwhelm would make you want to like shrink back, like, oh man, this is getting rocky. And instead of me going backwards, I said, hit the gas. We're going to pump the gas on this and let's go even crazier because we know this works. We just have to get over the hump.
Yeah.
And literally in 24 hours, I'm already seeing the difference, and it's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah.
So we got to stay on the offense, man.
For sure. And what you just said, the truth is like that applies to every area of life, right? It's you can hit a point in relationships where it's either like we're just comfortable and we're just here and it's kind of okay and it's really probably going to go backwards if you stay there. Or it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we hit this new challenge and if we work through this, now we have a deeper, closer, better relationship. It works in the work environment, it works with your kids. My son will be 18 in a couple of days and,
That's awesome.
watching, working through that with him, like I had to keep leveling up as a parent. I had to keep becoming more so that I could be the parent that my son needed as he continued to grow and become more, right? And when we don't do that, if we're like, this is hard or this is uncomfortable, or I don't know, I'm overwhelmed in a negative way, we tend to shrink back and that doesn't actually help us become better so that we can do more and have more and all of that, right, in all areas of our life. And I think that we're just, so many people are like hardwired to see a problem or a challenge and they instantly step back, right? They instantly shrink back. My son got accepted to University of Alabama to run track there, and I saw the
Awesome.
tuition and I was like, holy crap. And someone asked me like, what are you going to do? Are you going to like get a loan? I go, no, I'm just going to go make more money. Like
100%.
this is an
100%.
opportunity for me to make more money, right?
It's the difference between, again, it's a difference between a successful thinker and an unsuccessful thinker, somebody who has a broke mindset, somebody has an abundant mindset. A lot of people focus on the bottom line, right? Like, what does it cost? How much can I save? Like, how am I
Mhm.
going to make this work with what I have? And again, that's 2x thinking,
Yeah.
right? Like, I need more. So how can I double what I'm doing? And I love what you just said. Like, instead of focusing on the bottom line and spending all this energy trying to figure out the bottom line, like cost and saving and
Mhm.
move this to save that and, whatever, we
Mhm.
should be focusing on the top line. Because, like, no one has a cost problem. They just have an income problem. Because if you have enough income, it doesn't matter how much anything costs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you can just raise your top line, who cares what the bottom line is? Because we
Yeah.
have enough,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
And it's part of the becoming. It's part of all
Mhm.
that. Um, it's interesting. You're talking about like how the natural approach to problems is to shrink back. And Adrian, I feel I teach my students this all the time. I feel like it's actually what God intends for humanity. One of the things that He intends for us is that it's supposed to be hard until it gets easy.
Mm.
Like, why? Why? Because if everything comes easy, then what's the point of like becoming more? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, it's supposed to be hard until it gets easy, and shrinking back. Obviously, there are nuances. There are moments where, like, okay, it actually is wise to cut here or to adjust there or to, re-establish this so that we can advance. But the majority of the time, most of the time, the correct answer is to advance, 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 advance. It's to more action. It's to take more action, more action, more action. Um, I'm reminded of the story of the Israelites. Like, God's like, guys, I'm bringing you out of slavery, and I'm going to take you into the promised land. It's going to be awesome. And the way, your doorway into this promise is you have to go take fortified cities and you have to slay giants every single day. And everyone's like, we don't want to do that. We're just going to stay here
Yeah.
going
We'll
around the
stay
mountain
here.
for 40 years. And God being so wonderful, He goes, well, if you desire to not become more and not go do the work so that you can have what I wanted you to have, I'll meet you where you're at. And I
Mhm.
think, Adrian, that's where most people live their lives, is in the just enough, because they're not willing to become more. They're not willing to do the work. So they don't deserve to have the things that they desire. So God's like, look, I'll give you manna. Like, and they're
Yeah.
like,
I'll
manna
feed you.
again? I don't want you to have manna, but because you don't want to go take giants and slay giants and take the land, I'll just meet you where you're at. But this is not my will for you. I desire that you go become more and slay giants so that
Yeah.
you can step into the promise.
Yeah. Well, it just reminds me, like, I have a lot of peers right now, that own businesses, and we're on Voxer all the time talking, or we're in masterminds talking, or Zoom, or whatever. And the common thing that I keep hearing everybody say, and if I'm honest, I actually started to let it trickle into my brain and my thinking,
Mm,
is everybody's like, it's so hard right now. It's so hard. Launches aren't
good,
doing the same. This isn't doing the same. It's so hard. It
good.
used to be easy. I used to be able to just
Yeah.
throw up an ad or do a webinar, and it was so easy. I just made money so easy, and this is so hard. And they're like stuck, and their businesses are shrinking, and all they keep saying about it is, I just wish it was easier again. I just wish it was the way it was. Like, this is so hard. And I started to like let a little bit of that seep into me, like, it is hard, isn't it? Like,
I wish we
man,
could
that
go
does
back to
suck.
Egypt. At least in Egypt, we had like good food. And, they literally said the same thing, like, man, it's hot out here in this desert. Like,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Like, like I said earlier, like, it's supposed to be hard until it gets easy. And
Hmm.
anytime that it gets hard again, like, oh man, this is getting tough, it's just a sign that you're ready to level up. And
Yes.
you always have a decision in front of you as a successful person or not. Are you going to become the next version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, more prosperous, more wise? Or are you going to stay the person that you are now? And every single one of us knows somebody that has been exactly the same position, same finances, same mindset, same whatever that they have been for the past 20, 30 years. And you're just like, man, and that's what all of us, that is the easiest thing to do in life, is just to stay put.
Yeah.
But Adrian, there's a law. Um, gosh, what is it? It's the law of entropy. The law of entropy states that anything left to itself will naturally go backwards. It will naturally disintegrate.
Mm.
So, for instance, if you want your car to, disintegrate, don't do any oil changes, don't rotate the tires, don't clean it, right? Like, don't flush out the system once every, 50,000 miles. Don't do anything, and your car just naturally gets worse,
Hmm.
right? If you want to have terrible BO to where everyone and their mom is like, oh my God, stay away from him, stay away from her, all you have to do is not bathe.
Yeah.
Like, all you have to do is not brush your teeth, and it will
Mhm.
get worse. So the law of entropy states that anything that grows, anything that flourishes takes intention. And if all we want to do is
Mhm.
like, I just wish it was easy, we're
Mhm.
never going to grow. We're never going to get to that next level. We have to always be putting intention into everything that we do. And Adrian, you and I were talking before the show here. Like, I'm trying to be intentional, not just in my business. I want to be intentional in my health. I want to be intentional in my family, in my relationships, in my finances. I want to be intentional in every way because I desire to see consistent growth in every area. And if there's any area that I do not want to see grow, all I have to do is just not put any intention
Ignore it.
into it, and it
Mhm.
will gladly go backwards.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think what happens is when I'm thinking of all my friends that are like, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, is what happens is it was hard for all of us at one point in time when we were starting, right? Let's say when we're talking about business, starting a business is hard. They all worked their butts off to get to the point where it wasn't hard anymore, right? Like you
They
said,
became the person, and then they
they
did the
became the
work,
person. And
and
then
then they
it was
had the
great.
stuff.
And they're like, I arrived and this is wonderful. This is why I did this. All my hard work paid off. See, it was worth it. And now I'm living off the fruits of my labor and everything is great and wonderful. And then when it gets hard again, they're like, wait. Like, I already did hard. Like, I already did the work. I don't want to do that again. I want it to stay the way it is. And I think that we do that in so many areas of our life where it's like, I did the work. I just want to be rewarded. And
Yeah, 100%.
like you said, you get that reward, but if you just stay there, eventually you go back down. And so it's not about arriving, right? It's like, great, you arrived. Now let's do the next thing, right? Now let's go to the
Yeah,
next level because if you just stay there, then you're going to go backwards. And I think a lot of people, especially in business, feel like, oh, I'm going to work so hard till someday I don't have to work so hard, right? That's their whole thing. Oh, I did all this work so that in my 50s, I wouldn't have to do this anymore. Or I wouldn't have to do that. And that's just not the way it works. It doesn't work like that in business. It doesn't
not
work like that in
it's
friendships,
not the way it
relationships,
works.
health. It
I
doesn't
think
work like
as
that.
I think as humans, Adrian, like, all of us struggle with this. It's like we have this desire to arrive, like, I'm
Mhm.
going to go through the process so I can finally get there.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing, whenever you mature and you grow in wisdom and you actually start understanding how life works, the journey is the promise. Like, the journey
Mm.
is the destination.
Yes.
God has blessed my wife and I. There's been a number of years now that we're done forever financially. Like, if we just wanted to give up and, like, let's just go sail off into the sunset, we could. And why in the world are we still out here working and trying to figure out this thing every day and solve problems?
Mhm.
Because I want to become more
Yeah.
like Bezos, Elon Musk, like Warren Buffett. He's almost 100. Why is
I
he still
know.
working?
Why is
Like,
he
he's done for,
Yeah.
like, 80 generations. They're
Yeah. He
done,
was
right?
done a
But
long
like,
time ago. Mhm.
what's the point? It's because there's a certain level that you grow to in your mindset and in your success that you're like, this was never about chasing a dollar. This was
Mhm.
always about chasing potential.
Mhm.
And for me, it's like, okay, money is just, it's a byproduct of the person that I become, the work that I do. Money's just a byproduct. But for me, the real payoff is, who am I going to grow into next? right?
Yeah.
Like, who can I become next? Like, what's the next level that God has for me in my journey? And for me, that is a way, way, way bigger reward. The dopamine hits different
Yeah.
whenever you start chasing the potential instead of the dollar.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think also is we get so caught up. I love how the becoming, you have it before the doing, because we get so caught up in the doing, and then we make that equate to our value or our worthiness of what we do, right? Like, I'm valuable because I do all these things or what I do. And that is very fleeting, right?
Yes.
Because then you have
You
to
have
always
it's
be
the
doing,
values
doing,
in the
doing,
being.
doing more. Yeah.
The values
Yeah.
in the being. Like,
The
we
value
have
is
to
in the being.
be before we can become, we have to be.
Yeah.
Before we can believe, we have to be. Like, it's those roots going down in the soil, man. That's where the value is at.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so amazing. I love this. This was such a good conversation. Oh my
I
goodness.
love it.
So, well, as we wrap up, I mean, I'd love to, if you have any things that you were like, I'd love to tell your audience this and we didn't touch on it, I'd love to talk about that. And then I'd also love for you to tell people about your business and how you help people and how they can find out more about you.
Sure, sure. I think just some final thoughts here is kind of like the theme that we've been kind of like talking about today is it is so good for us to embrace the hard.
Mhm.
Um, and I just want to leave it with your audience here. Like, do not allow difficulty, overwhelm, pressure. Do not allow any of these feelings because uh, I say it like this: feelings aren't reelings. Feelings aren't
Mm.
real, right? Like, yes, they feel real, but it's not reality,
Mhm.
right? So the feelings of overwhelm and this is hard and oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? The second you start giving into like those things being bigger than yourself, you instantly shrink your God-given potential. We need to flip the narrative on its head and we need to begin to say, "Oh, overwhelm is knocking at the door again. It must be time for me to level up. Okay, let's do this." And I know how to do this because every single person watching, you've gone through overwhelming things and you didn't die because you're watching this. How did you get here? You overcame the hard thing and you're a better person for it now. So
Yeah.
instead of being addicted to like the ease of life, I want to be
Mhm.
addicted to the in a weird way, the struggle, the process,
Yeah.
the grind, the becoming, because over time, like I said earlier, that is the actual point, not the dollar, not like the success is not the stuff, it's
Yeah.
in the becoming,
Yeah.
right? But when you do that, when you become and you do the work and you have the stuff, you can make the biggest impact you want to make ever,
Yeah.
but it all starts in that root of becoming. So I think we need to embrace the hard times and
Mhm.
don't let any hard situation be bigger than your God given potential.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that, Rick. All right. So if people are listening and they love you as much as I do, where can they go to follow you, learn more about what you do, tell us about your business so they can know more?
100%. Yeah. I mean, one of the big things that we're doing right now is we help new entrepreneurs either start their business with digital products. We help established entrepreneurs, coaches, agencies, course creators. We show them how to get more high ticket clients, and those who are even they feel stuck because a lot of us have felt stuck at 6 figure months. We
Mhm.
even help people at that level get to 7 figure months and beyond, all with our systems and our processes, our blueprints, our coaching. All of it can be found at rickpino.com.
Awesome. Well, Rick, thank you so much for being here today. This was
It's my
so
joy.
good. A lot of it I needed to
I
hear.
always love talking with you, Adrian. It's always a joy. I think we have a lot
Uh,
of fun together.
yeah, we do. It's been great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Thanks.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode. This story was a remarkable testament to human resilience, courage, and perseverance. To help you manage the ups and downs of your own life journey, I have a special gift for you called the Resilience Playbook. This free guide includes 12 resilience factors that gave me hope, inspiration, and empowerment during some of my darkest times. Whether you're navigating the ups and downs of a relationship, maybe you're facing unexpected twists in your career or your business, or you're tackling personal health challenges, whatever that challenge is in your life today, this playbook will equip you with the tools you need to strengthen your resilience muscle. To get your copy, find me on Instagram and send me a DM with the words playbook, or you can simply click the link in the show notes. Before we part ways today, I want to remind you that you can do hard things and that strength lies within you just waiting to be unveiled. I hope you'll carry the lessons shared today with you as you grow, evolve, and strengthen your resolve. If you enjoyed this episode, be a good friend and share it with someone you know could use it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Until next time, take care, my friend.